The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
All right, show of hands. Who's frustrated with technology? Good, you guys are raising two hands. All right. Me too. Don't feel bad. My name is Marc-Anthony Arena, and this is the IT industry, or grease fire, in a nutshell. I am the author of How to Protect Yourself from Your Computer and the host of the Computer Exorcist podcast. And I go around giving talks. So here I am. Here's how I landed in this mess. Hollywood Beach, Florida, 1992. My family took me down to visit my grandma's aunt. And we were having lunch with her, and she would like to spoil us with lots of Oreos and toys. And she had these cousins who came over. And after lunch, they declared that they needed to buy a new television. And my dad said, hold on a second, and he volunteered me to look at it. So my dad took me over to their high-rise apartment. We went up the elevator, quite a few stories, and walked into their apartment, and I said, give me the remote. And it didn't work.
Which one?
Their TV remote.
Three.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that, but it didn't work. So I said, give me some batteries. So I rolled the batteries around, put fresh batteries in, turned it on, and they were amazed. And that was the first episode that taught me. It was the first of many, many, many episodes that taught me that the vast majority of expenditures in the electronics and the IT industry for consumers are unnecessary. It's all unnecessary. Unfortunately, most of the guys, like your guys at the pop collars at the big box store, make their living by pushing things onto you whether or not you need them. And as time went on, I made it my job and my purpose in life, really, to save you money. I make money by saving people money, because the amount of e-waste and the amount of computers and TVs and laptops, you name it, that are in the landfill is preposterous. It's unthinkable. The vast majority of electronics that we discard were perfectly fine for a myriad of reasons. Someone thought they needed to throw it away, and someone told them to go buy a new one. Just last night, I get a call from a lady, and she said, well, Mark, I bought a new router. Can you come set it up? I said, what are you talking about? I put in a new router for you within the past year. Well, my neighbor's a computer guy, and he told me to get a new one. I said, hold on. All right, what's your initial symptom? Whenever someone calls and says they need something, I have to say, hold on a second. What's the actual problem here? Right? It's like when I call my doctor and I say, hey, should I start taking aspirin? And he says, hold on, what's your actual problem? So it turns out she had a streaming device in her living room and a streaming device far off in her bedroom. The one in the living room wasn't working right. And the dude told her, oh, just go buy a new router because new is good and old is bad. So she bought a brand new router. He never bothered to ask her if other devices in her house were working fine. He never bothered to ask her if the device that was malfunctioning was far away or close. He never bothered to ask her how old her router was. He never bothered to ask her anything. So I said, all right, let's start from the beginning. Are other things in your house malfunctioning? No, everything else is fine. All right, how far is this streaming device that isn't working? Oh, it's about 10 inches away from the router. So the one that's far away is working fine, and the one that's close to your router isn't working. Okay, it's obviously not your router's fault. It's obviously that one particular item that's the culprit, okay? I'm apparently the only guy in my industry, with possible exception of this guy, who has common sense.
I'm not a fan. I'm a friend of Mark's. I live in Rhode Island.
So the idea is, it's just infuriating how little common sense is in my industry. The other thing so what happened was, I kept doing tech support for friends and family. At one point in 2009, I was at my dad's cousin's sister's best friend's house cleaning her PC, and my girlfriend at the time happened to accompany me. And afterwards she observed, "Hey Mark, you're good at explaining this stuff in plain English. Why don't you do this for a living?" And at first I scoffed, and I said, "I don't want to do this for a living. I want to do something cutting edge." And she said, "While you're broke, you might as well." So I've been here ever since. This is what I've been doing for a living ever since. And what I realized was, this is the cutting edge. What guys in my industry don't realize is the need is right here in the residential setting. Okay, the vast majority of consumers have no idea what's going on with any of this stuff. And again, they're just being sold a bill of goods, and they're being told that your computer's old, and it's 2 years old, and you should put it in the garbage, and shame on you, and you should buy a new one, because new equals good. Like I just talked about with that example, that guy didn't bother asking her any kind of troubleshooting questions, but just told her to go out and buy a new router. And who knows what brand she would have ended up with and whatever. So what I noticed, another thing I noticed is that my clientele weren't dummies. They would all call me up, "Mark, I feel stupid." And "Mark, my computer guy said I was stupid." Well, that's interesting, because these are all doctors, lawyers, retired business owners, you name it. And my favorite example, I had this client, just super sweet guy, and he had, no joke, 19 medical degrees, all in one frame in his home office. And he'd always have constant problems with his computer, right? The truth is this: my industry changes exponentially, and it moves the goalpost constantly. In the case of Microsoft Windows, it's changed every 2 weeks at this point, and people are expected to keep up. Unfortunately, even the IT guys out there can't even keep up with this stuff. I talked to someone who retired from IT maybe a couple years ago, and they have no idea what's going on. So the first part of this talk is, here's some problems and here's some concepts. Don't worry, toward the end we'll talk about solutions, right? I used to do this as a 4-evening course. And on the first night, there were a few ladies who walked out and they said to me, "Mark, we're really scared now. Now we feel worse." And I said, "Don't worry, that's just the first part of the talk." There are two kinds of people in this world. There are people with morals, logic, ethics, and common sense. And then there's the computer industry, which has none of that. The vast majority of electronics in the recycle bin or in the landfill are there unnecessarily. The vast majority of money spent on products and services is unnecessary. Once I explain these concepts to people in plain English, as I say in the intro to my podcast, people are ready to get torches and pitchforks.
Do you have any slides going yet, Mark?
What's that? Oh, good point. Yeah. Good point. We're going to fix that. Speaking of being frustrated with technology, okay, let's do that again. Yeah, good catch.
You'll explain at the end how to sign up for podcasts too.
Sure, we can talk about that. Yeah, and I like the concept of podcasts because it's a distributed world where most things in my industry are controlled by tyrants and monopolies. But in the case of podcasts, it's very independent, and there's podcast directories that refer you to podcasts, but nobody controls everything, luckily, so far. That's Hollywood Beach, Florida. Here we go. So the vast majority of this stuff didn't need to be there. In my professional experience, the vast majority of printers in the landfill are HP. They were
contributed.
What's that?
I contributed.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people buy HP products because they think that it's an acceptable brand. HP used to be a great brand before 2011. Now HP and a few other brands will give kickbacks or incentives to the salespeople to push them desperately on people who don't know any better. So the only people buying HP products at this point are people who think that printers are supposed to die after a year or after a month or sometimes a day.
They usually die right when I order a new set of ink cartridges.
Hysterical. Yeah.
Can't get rid of the cartridges, they cost more than the printer.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but what I recommend there is always buy third-party cartridges. That way you're not giving money to feed the beast. HP cartridges are $40 or more, and you can get third-party cartridges on eBay. Sometimes it's a 12-pack for $20. So it's worth looking into. You know, and people say this all the time, if the prices were reasonable, fine. But if it's getting out of control. So we'll get into that in a bit. So here's what I'm doing about it. After a few years of being in this industry, you know, I had an inkling people were being ripped off by big box stores, but I had no idea just how far it went. Until I just heard story after story from people. Hi Mark, my computer was 3 years old and I brought it to the store and the guy wiped out all my documents and photos because he said that's what he was supposed to do. And he said there was viruses, so he erased all my stuff. And then he told me to put it in the garbage and get a new one because it was too slow. Really? That's interesting. This particular machine is from around 2013 and I found it in my buddy's recycle bin. I love taking old machines that people leave for dead and making them work for many, many years. It's a greatly gratifying thing. Anytime a dude tells you your computer's too old, if it's less than 15 years old, it's totally fine. It's all what I call the support treadmill, where they tell you, shame on you, it's out of support, which triggers you to buy a new one. These products, look at our phones and our refrigerators from the 50s and 60s are still working. Why is this new stuff not working after 2-3 years, right? So I became frustrated and what started out as me just driving around my town, helping people, making good money, and then I'd come home and watch some Netflix and eat some food in front of the TV, became me being really frustrated, realizing this is a worldwide issue. It's stuff that really shouldn't be occurring. So I wrote my book and I do a podcast and here I am giving talks. So we're going to talk about the new threats, and these are threats your computer guy might not be aware of yet. The most important thing, and I said this a few minutes ago, the most important thing I'm going to say here is that viruses stopped in 2013. I have not seen a virus in a residential consumer setting since 2013. That's not to say there aren't other things happening, but if you have a computer guy who's going to come over and do a virus scan, that's not the answer. And I'm going to give you plenty of examples of situations where computer guys showed up and they did a virus scan, totally pointless, totally fruitless, ineffective. The other thing that's really important to know, in my book I talk about playing Jenga. You guys remember playing Jenga? And you have the little bricks and you build them up and build them up, and then when you pull out a brick and put it on the top, you put it on the top. So your little tower gets taller, but at what expense? Stability, exactly the word. That is my industry. There's a book called Why Software Sucks. And it was written in 2007, and it's increasingly relevant. Just like my book, it's written in a friendly way, so that it's a user-friendly read. And the guy wrote it so that his hairdresser could understand it. That's how he put it. And what he said in the book is that computer guys don't want to. They'd much rather add features than they would spending time fixing fundamental stability issues. It's a lot more fun to add shiny features, or maybe the boss tells you go add more features and forget about improving the actual product's reliability. So that's what happens here. My industry is a giant game of Jenga. So you'll notice with phones, right? Like I got this new phone beginning of last year, and it's bigger and the battery's better and blah, 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 but nothing works right. Because they figured rather than fix all the stability problems that we've had with these smartphones for a few years, oh, well, let's just add more garbage that nobody asked for. So if viruses don't happen anymore, what's going on? Why are our computers slow? Why do we still have pop-ups? Why don't they work right? What's going on? I define malware, right? Malware means malicious software. I define it as anything that slows you down, records your behavior, ruins your computer, or begs you for money. That's always been the definition. But now it's legal. I can get away with this legally as long as I don't use the word virus or spyware or malware. If I use certain keywords instead, I get away with it legally. So it's kind of like if we all wanted to rob a bank. So we all put our little masks on and we all go to the bank together. And as long as we say, hey, stick them up, we're the plumbers, we get away with it legally. That's kind of like what's happening. That's my analogy. So if you want to write something, a piece of software that spies or slows down or begs people for money or whatever, you can call it a fake cleaner. You can call it PC Optimizer Pro is a great example, or Mac Keeper. I had these cousins and we were at this barbecue a few years ago and they said, Mark, we got this brand new Mac and it's horribly slow. And I said, oh, you have Mac Keeper. And they said, wow, how'd you know? And I said, Mac Keeper is the worst product ever created by human hands and it destroys even the newest, most powerful Macs, slows them down by 99%. It's fully legal because it claims to clean. They called themselves a cleaner, so they got away with it. Destroys the computer and begs them for $39.99 a month. Driver updater, driver guide, driver pro, driver whatever. That's another way. If you have anything on your computer that says driver updater, driver guide, again, fully legalized, destroys your computer, begs you for money.
Do they update the drivers? Are they just...
They don't do anything, right? They might make you think they are, and they might do a little token thing, so at least they can technically, they can technically qualify, but they're not doing anything. They're just ripping your computer apart. You never need to update your drivers unless you're some advanced gamer or something, right? I always liken it to the studs in your walls. Unless you're building or remodeling, you don't need to worry about them. Toolbars is another one. And these latch onto your web browser. They record everything you type, everything you search for, every website you go to, and then they sell it to wherever. But they call themselves toolbars, again, so they get away with it. A lot of times my favorite one is secure search, where, oh, it says secure, so it must be secure, but really they're recording everything you're searching for and selling it. Fully legalized. Again, if you have a dude come over who says he's a computer guy and he does a virus scan, he ain't gonna find anything. Okay? Your typical computer guy, it's kind of like going to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, hey, you have polio or bubonic plague? No? Oh, okay, then you must be fine. And dismissing you because he can only detect ancient problems. Does that make sense? So one of the more nefarious things that's happening is printer spyware. When I did a year of corporate tech support back in 2011, and one day everyone called me up and said, hey Mark, my computer's horribly slow. And I said, really? What'd you do lately? And they said, nothing. But one of your on-site guys came into my office and installed my new HP printer. Okay. Next call. Hey Mark, my computer's horribly slow. What happened? I didn't do anything. Well, what'd you do recently? Nothing, but your guy came in and installed an HP printer for me the other day. Really? And everyone said the same thing. And here I was in corporate tech support thinking that the grown-up world was always on the up and up and always did things the right way. And during that year, I learned a lot of filthy things that the industry was doing, and that was one of them. It turns out that HP implants sometimes 7 pieces of these fully legalized pieces of spyware. They record how often you print and who knows what else, and they get away with it legally because they call it customer participation program, or sometimes product improvement study. And this is where you are an unwilling participant in their studies. So all printer manufacturers are now doing this to people without their knowledge. HP is definitely the worst of 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 the worst as far as ethics, as well as physical build quality. And yeah, in a few minutes we'll get to the rest of that explanation. So that is the first new threat. Again, viruses can't happen anymore. These 4 new threats are happening instead. Everyone good on the first one? Next one is update attacks. And this one is especially close to my heart. And this is where I differ with a lot of computer guys. A lot of guys will be with me on a lot of this stuff, but sometimes we don't see eye to eye on this one. But I'll explain things as diplomatically as I can, and explain that it's a good idea gone wrong, right? I'm not saying it's all bad, I'm saying it's a good idea gone wrong, and we'll talk about the side effects. So updates mean well, right? You get an update on your phone, you get an update on your computer, they promise to help you, they promise to protect you, they promise to fix things that they just forgot to fix before they sold it to you. They claim to protect you against some astronomically unlikely event. Okay, you'll sometimes hear on the news for some of the big ones, right? Some newscasters will get on there and they'll say, Apple is recommending everyone update your iPhone because if some bad guy in a Russian basement can get into your phone. If it's a noon moon and a high tide and he's wearing a green hoodie and it's a Wednesday and you're hopping on one foot. In other words, astronomically unlikely situation. So updates, meanwhile, they come from the actual publisher, right? Apple, Samsung, Microsoft, whoever. They come from the publisher. But at what cost? Number one, it's a violation of your privacy in a lot of cases, especially when Microsoft does one of these, and especially when Samsung does one of these. Whenever they do an update, there are side effects. And one of them is this. This is what I call a don't mind if I do, where when they apply an update, they'll fix one thing, but then other things happen, right? Where they go, oh, don't mind if I do. And now all of a sudden they're recording something else about you. And then during the next update, they'll add something else that records something about you, and so on. If you look in Windows, there's a secret thing called secret privacy menu, and that's where Microsoft discloses what they're recording about you. And one of my favorite things is what they call the getting to know you, where that's newspeak, right? That's Orwellian newspeak. Getting to know you means this is where they admit that they're recording your typing and your speech. Oh, but it's nice. They call it getting to know you. How nice of them. Also, the other side effect is confusion. They will scramble your interface like scrambled eggs, right? You ever notice how you're using your computer and then you get an update and it's spinning and spinning and spinning, right? And then the next day you try to use the machine and all your buttons are rearranged. And how come I can't do this anymore? And how come I can't find this? And where did this go? Every time they do an update, they scramble everything. My buddy Jim calls it a randomized user interface. They thought something was better, so they did that, and they don't understand. And that goes to my next point. They don't understand that you own these things. They believe that they own them and they can do whatever they want to them, and too bad for you. They don't realize, apparently, that you depend on this stuff, and they don't realize that this is yours. The other thing, you ever notice after you get one of those updates, especially on your iPhone, especially on Windows, especially on Samsung phones, and what happens the next day when you go to use it? Bingo. Horribly slow, dramatically slower in a lot of cases. Why? Well, it's a beautiful way to prematurely damage a product so that it goes into that landfill we talked about a few minutes ago. Again, the products that we used to use 10, 20, 30 years ago lasted really long. Now, it's what I call forced obsolescence. It's not just planned obsolescence anymore. Planned obsolescence, right? Ford Thunderbird in the 50s, they would come up with a new design every 3-4 years and you'd feel obligated to keep up with the neighbors. This is forced obsolescence. This is too bad for you. We're either going to make your product too slow to use, or we'll tell you flat out, sorry, too bad, you're not allowed to use this anymore. And we'll get into that later some more. The other thing that and I've coined the term update attack to describe this, because in my opinion, this is a new threat. The other really interesting thing is whenever you do an update, they claim to patch one thing, but then they break 10 other things. It's kind of like when I was little, I would watch the really classic Donald Duck episodes where he was in, my favorite one is where he's in a sinking boat. And there's a spout of water, right? And then he'll put his foot and stop the spout of water, and then 2 more spouts of water appear, so then he'll step on those, and then 3 more appear, and then he'll cover up those, and then 4 more appear, right? It's comical, quite literally. It's hysterical. But that's what happens with update attacks. Inexplicably, fix one thing, break 10 more. There was the October 2018 attack when Microsoft attacked everyone with a new version of Windows 10, and in a lot of cases it just roasted all your data. Just all your documents, all your photos gone. Too bad for you. And most people don't have any backups, so they just lost it all. With the Get Windows 10 scandal a few years before, Microsoft attacked every Windows 7 and 8 computer on Earth and just force attacked Windows 10. Even if you click no and you click the red X, they just force attacked. And in a huge number of cases, it roasted the whole computer. Too bad for you. No recourse, because when you open up the package or you click agree, you agree that you don't sue them. You agree that you hold them harmless and so on. So it's just too bad for you. Let's just roast your whole computer, no consequences. Everyone okay on that?
No, scared.
Go ahead. Well, and again, we'll get to the prevention. There are things that I can do. If you have an iPhone, you can go to settings and then update, settings, general, update, and you can turn off the update attacks. And then voila, your iPhone lasts you many, many years. I just upgraded from an iPhone 6 to a 7. And it's totally fine. As long as I turn off updates, they'll just keep going. In rare cases, you'll have to update something, but the idea is my clients have phones and computers that last many years once I turn off the updates. They're no less safe, they're no worse off, and their machines last many years. And that's apparently worth it to people. With Windows 10 and newer, as a consumer, you aren't allowed to protect yourself from update attacks. There's a tool that I use, and I teach my apprentices, the guys I teach also have that tool, and we implement that, and then your computer becomes stable. And you don't have the slowing down and the chaos and the roasting of all your stuff, just meltdowns, it just works. It's a lot more stable from then on. Okay. The next new threat is known as CryptoLocker, or hostageware, or ransomware. It's all the same thing, different names. These things, if you have a Microsoft Windows PC, it's almost inevitable that you'll get them. It's very likely anyway, so be prepared. It's just like if you live in Florida, you're gonna have a hurricane, that's okay, just be prepared, okay? These walk into any Windows PC like a hot knife through butter. It's like taking candy from a baby and shooting fish in a barrel all at the same time. They walk right in. They used to affect residential people, but now I haven't seen that in a long time. Now they're going after organizational computers because they know that these large organizations can afford to pay huge ransoms, and they know that these large organizations still consider Microsoft Outlook as an acceptable product, which is hysterical because it has zero security. So what do? CryptoLocker, hostageware, or ransomware. The idea is they break into your PC and they scramble all your documents and photos so they're unreadable. All your precious stuff scrambled. And then they beg you for ransom. And again, in the case of an organization, I just read a study that said something like 76% of organizations are actually paying this ransom, which is insane, because that means 76% of IT guys don't understand how to protect the organizations they are hired to protect.
And they wade in through firewalls and security software?
Yep, all pointless. If you're infected with Microsoft Outlook, anything can walk right in. Outlook is what I call digital Swiss cheese. Its primary purpose is letting bad things into your computer. Its secondary purpose is allowing you to read and write email. So if you're not using that, you're a lot safer. But yeah, it's possible to get one of these on a non-Microsoft product, but it's incredibly unlikely. So they scramble all your stuff, they beg you for money, and sometimes it's 150 grand, sometimes it's tens of thousands of dollars, who knows what it is. And hilariously, they actually have tech support lines where you can call the bad guys and they can help you get payment to them. So that's how they get in. And one thing I was talking to Miles about in the beginning before we started was common sense, right? In the beginning I said morals, logic, ethics, and common sense. A couple years ago I was driving through downtown Boston, and the head of the Massachusetts Steamship Authority was on the radio announcing that they were hit with a ransomware, but they did not have to pay it because his staff protected him. His staff protected his organization. So they erased all their computers that had the scrambled information on them, and they started fresh. How did his staff protect them? I was so proud to hear that, because in most cases, you know, I'm hearing the news and I'm crying because I can't believe how most of these guys cannot protect their organizations. But it's really simple. I'm going to tell you guys right now. It's just common sense. Here's what happens. All you have to do is back up your data, right? Duplicate your information, documents, photos, sometimes business databases, whatever it is. You duplicate the information onto an external hard drive, and then, drum roll please, you disconnect it. That's it. You disconnect it and maybe put it in a fire safe. I love when I give this talk, and you know, it's full of a lot of my audience is a lot of beginners and all that, and I say, there you go. You now know more than 76% of IT guys in the world, because y'all have common sense and wisdom. And I love those ads, right? There's numbers flying around and Greek alphabet letters flying around, and it says, in today's economy and computer technology is changing and ever changing, and you have to do scans and clouds and put out fires, and they're all playing whack-a-mole. But in reality, if you just stop and have a little confidence, you don't have to follow that. You don't have to become a slave to the chasing and the scanning and the whatever. It's all about having a little bit of confidence and common sense. So that's what I do for people when I work on anyone's machine, right? Even if you don't get a ransomware, right? All this stuff is prone to failure. So you do a proper backup, you put it in a fire safe, and if you have a problem, no big deal, you're okay. We do that backup periodically, even if it's twice a year. It's something. I do it probably quarterly, and I keep a backup at my parents' house, I keep one at my office. No big deal. Even if my computer falls off a cliff, it's okay. My car was stolen a month ago, and my laptop was in it. All right, that's awful, but I have a backup. It's okay. So that is the concept of ransomware. And one of the things I'm doing is teaching companies this. Hey, if you want to avoid the massive expenditure of ransom money, hey, how about we just do a proper backup? That make sense? The fourth one's very important, especially for my seniors. These are called support scams. This is so important, so important. I want to dedicate my career to raising awareness for these. A support scam, in a nutshell, is where a bad guy calls you up and says he works for some tech company, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, maybe even the IRS, and he says you have a problem. And he reads a list of scary words and then offers to help you. And then disaster ensues. That's what it is in a nutshell. There are 4 ways they can contact you. You can get a call out of the blue. They're calling every number one by one in the world. They're just calling everyone. Or you have an issue with your computer, you go on the Googles, and you type in, I need AOL tech support, I need HP tech support, I need Microsoft Outlook tech support, whatever. And then they put their fake evil phone numbers there and you call them up and they say, yeah, sure, we're Microsoft, sure, we'll help you. And some of them even pay the $20 to get the textbook and lollipop and bumper sticker that says they're Microsoft certified, just so they can get away with saying they're Microsoft certified. The other way they can get to you is if you get a scary email, all right? It's incredibly easy to fabricate one of these emails, right? People just believe anything. Oh, it has the Chase logo, it has the Geek Squad logo, it has the whoever, Microsoft, the Norton logo, the whoever. If you notice, though, a lot of times it'll say from Cindy Lou Who at AOL.com, and then it'll be an invoice that claims they're from Microsoft. So pay attention to who sent it to you, and also pay attention if they don't greet you by name. That's another thing. If it says PayPal and then it says Dear Guest or Dear Consumer or whatever. The other thing is take a look at spelling, because a lot of times it'll all be misspelled. So there's a lot of ways there. The 4th way they can get to you is a very common thing where you'll get a pop-up on your screen. You'll be playing some online game or reading some trashy gossip column website or whatever, and all of a sudden something will take over your screen. And sirens will go off because they know seniors don't know how to lower the volume on their computer. So you got these sirens and these voices saying, warning, warning. And you'll see some kind of a scary message, right? Maybe even a fake virus scan, and it'll say Windows System Defender, Norton Defender, system may have detected viruses. You have Trojans and cookies, and North Koreans put cookies up your firewall. And all the other scary words you can think of. Because, in my professional opinion, we as a society have lived for the past 30 years in fear, thanks to Microsoft's extreme incompetence. They know we're scared. They know they can get us riled up pretty easily. So they put scary words on our screen.
Any chance they're inside jobs? Because the scam that I went for, and I'm embarrassed that I did, I had just signed up for the cloud, and then I get a phone call, there's a problem with your cloud, and I pursued it and did all the wrong things.
So
I'm wondering if...
It's probably a coincidence.
Okay.
There's a lot of apathy in my industry, but they're not tipping off the scammers. The scammers know that everybody is suffering with all of this garbage. It's probably a coincidence there. The other thing is, the cloud is a concept, it's an industry, and then there's different brands within there. So maybe you signed up for iCloud, which is Apple's brand of cloud services. There's all sorts of different cloud services out there. They're all unnecessary, pretty much.
I learned if somebody knew that.
No, they're calling everyone. They call everyone with every phone number and every email address. And don't feel bad, because most of my clients call me, and again, they're all intelligent, successful people. Well, the guy called and said he was Microsoft, so I gave him all my credit cards, right? I get this all the time. And I say, please, I don't charge for phone calls. Please call me. Even if you're not sure, please feel free to pick my brain. Most of it is fake. Honestly, consider everything is fake at this point. Almost all emails are fake. Even if you get one, just drive to your bank and make sure. Right? Don't believe anything you see there. Big tech hates you, and they will never call you. The real big tech companies, they aren't going to call you. And again, now that you know viruses can never, ever, 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 ever happen again, the real threat is these 4 threats that we've talked about tonight. Right? The real threat is the support scam itself, which is nothing more than scary sentences. There's no technology involved at all, except for a pop-up that plays a fake video with all sorts of fakery. And by the way, when you see those, you move your mouse to the top of the screen, and sometimes you have to press escape on your keyboard, or you move your mouse to the top of the screen and press the X to close that scary window. And they'll warn you, don't turn off your computer, it'll explode, don't. They don't want you to turn off your computer because they know that's how it goes away. So close the window ideally. Worst case, shut down your computer, do a proper shutdown. When you come back, some of the web browsers think they're trying to help you, and they'll say, do you want to go back to where you were? And just say, no, I want to start fresh, please. Right? If you believe one of these guys, their idea is this. They want you to let them in to your computer. There was a Swedish movie a while back it was a Swedish vampire movie called Don't Let the Right One In. And it's the same concept here. They can't ever get into your computer ever unless you let them. Don't ever forget that. Please warn your friends. No one can ever get into your computer ever unless you let them. And again, they're not using viruses. They're not using these ancient things. They're using fully legalized tools to get into your computer. So if they say, hey, I'm Microsoft, let me into your computer so I can help you, they're going to have you go to a website. And that website will be for a fully legal remote support tool that I use, that he uses, that most IT guys use. Fully legalized things that TeamViewer, AnyDesk, Glance. Glance is based somewhere around here, and they're really cool actually, because I contacted the guy one of the guys there a while back, and I said, hey, one of my clients was victimized and they were using Glance. And the guy said, I'm gonna get this guy, I'm gonna help you out here, we're gonna trace him. He was awesome. So the point is, they're using fully legalized tools. So again, if your computer guy comes over and says, we're gonna do a virus scan, and we're gonna get this ransomware, we're gonna get this support scammer, we're gonna get this whatever, they'll find nothing. Because none of these things that we're talking about tonight are viruses.
How did they get eliminated? What eliminated them? The new core software?
Bad guys realizing that they can do other things and get away with it. That's really what it was. Nobody banged a gavel and said no more viruses.
Worms and all that stuff?
That none of it happens. You'll get worms if you're infected with Outlook, but other than that, you're not going to get any of this stuff. The bad guys have moved on to bigger and better things, and most dudes in the IT world are still looking for the old stuff. So the idea is once they get into your computer using a fully legalized tool, then they'll implant some fake cleaners, usually legalized, right? Oh, there was one, it was called Total AV or something, and it was technically legal, but it was this horrible piece of garbage. You could never cancel your account, whatever. I had a client with that a few months ago, and I just had to have their credit card. We called the credit card and had to dispute it because there was no way to get out of it. Technically legal. They'll implant all sorts of fake things in there that claim to help you but are destroying your computer. The worst guys will actually lock your computer, and then you have to pay them every time you want to use it. I haven't seen that in a while, but that's worst case. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, we are securing your computer, let us do a scan. And I actually let them break into my test computers sometimes, and I had, on my podcast, I'll record episodes of me tormenting these scammers, and I'll pretend I'm Foghorn Leghorn, and I'll say, boy, are you getting into my computer? And they don't know who Foghorn Leghorn is, so they just go with it. And they said, sir, we are securing your computer. And I was watching them, and they were going through my web history, right? Because unfortunately, modern web browsers like Edge and Chrome and Firefox and whatever save all your passwords. So they were poking through my computer looking for all my passwords, and they were looking for banking passwords, so on and so forth, right? Again, nothing to do with viruses. My blood boils when someone calls me up and says, my bank told me to go get a virus scan. That can't help you against a dude using a legalized tool manually poking through your computer, can it? Again, you all know more than any computer guy now, because this is just logic, it's common sense. So I cry thinking about all the millions and zillions of dollars people are spending because their banker told them to go get a virus scan. Their banker doesn't know any better, and the dude on the other side of the computer store doesn't know any better either. In the land of the blind, one-eyed men are kings, as my buddy James says. So at that point, sometimes they'll ask you for a credit card, or they'll ask for all your bank account numbers if they can't find anything themselves. And again, most of my people just, oh yeah, sure, and they give them all their stuff thinking it's a trustworthy guy. I had 3 people last year, intelligent, successful people, and they call all business owners and so on, and hey Mark, yeah, I just put 50 grand cash in a box and mailed it to India. You what? Well, yeah, the guy told me he was Microsoft. What they do is, I mean, there's so many different tricks they try to do with you, a lot of smoke and mirrors stuff. In that particular case, the guy will have you fill out a fake form, and then he'll, as you're typing in an amount, he presses an extra 0 and tries to get you scared, and then makes you think that you need to give him some of the money back. It's just wild. Or they'll send you a fake check, and then they'll say that you need to send them some of it back. And of course, the one check is fake, so you give them a real check and you lose everything. What is the only thing that can stop a support scam?
Common sense.
Yeah, common sense, and please warn your friends. It's all about awareness. I have a buddy who's a police trainer, and he's trying to introduce me to different police departments so I can teach them preventative things. All you have to do is be aware of it. Be aware of how they work. Be aware that no one can ever get into your computer unless you let them. Be aware that none of these guys are real. The real companies ain't gonna call you. And that's really it. Just be aware that viruses can't happen again, and anytime you see something with loud sirens and whatever, just ignore it. So please tell your friends. That helps me help the world. All you got to do is warn people about this. We okay on that one? All right, the next one is a bonus threat, as I call it. This one's awfully interesting. We are paying, what are you guys paying for your internet connections at home?
$55 a month.
It's not terrible. What do you?
Probably more, but I'm beyond details.
And that's how they want you. And they love when you're on auto payment, because then they don't have to mail you a bill and you never know what you're paying and whatever. And they're hoping, a lot of, when they say bad guys do things under cover of darkness, in my industry they do things under cover of complexity, right? They make it so complex that people give up eventually, right? So, I mean, a lot of my people back home are paying up to $89 a month, sometimes more, for the Turbo Ultimate Extreme Mega Internet, right? That someone told them they needed. Here's the deal. When my mom goes out for ice cream, she always bemoans the fact that even the kiddie dish of ice cream is $8. She says, I just want a small thing of ice cream. Well, in order to justify that price, they're going to give you a huge bowl of ice cream, right? I just wanted a scoop. Same thing is happening in this computer industry, where you have this incredibly expensive, unnecessarily expensive internet connection. And they justify the price by giving you these huge speeds. No one knows what any of these speeds mean, right? Oh, you're going to get 100 megabit, you're going to get 500 megabit, you're going to get a gigabit, No one needs any of it. In my estimation, no consumer household needs more than 25 megabit. And they're out there giving you 100, 200, 300, 500. And if you have any kind of issue whatsoever, just like the issue that lady had a couple days ago and the guy told her to buy a new router, they are quick to offer you the Turbo, the Extreme, the Ultimate package, because they don't know what's going on and they're just trying to make more money off of you every month. So what do we do here? So there's a couple of things. As far as the pricing, what I do, and I've done this for Comcast, I had a family friend out in Hull, and they were senior citizens, they were probably in their 80s, and they probably watching 1 or 2 cable channels, and they check their email once a week or something, right? And they were paying something like $280 a month to Comcast. I said, this is nuts. I said, I'm not familiar with Comcast, but let me call them. And I called, and you ask for the cancellation department, you tell them you're going to cancel, the price is too high for internet. And then they'll throw a lot of curveballs at you and just say no to all of them, right? They'll dangle cell phone service, or they'll say, how about I charge you $1 less a month? Or they try to blow you off, and they're trained to blow you off in different ways. Just say no to all of it. And then you say, look, do you have any kind of really basic internet package? And they'll throw more curveballs, and they'll say, wait a minute, don't you do streaming? You need a billion zillion gigabits. And you say, no. I just check my email once a year. Nothing in here but us chickens. And just say, I want the cheapest internet possible. What do you have? I don't use the internet that much, whatever. And again, they'll throw 50 curveballs, but eventually they'll give you some kind of affordable plan. Back at home, Spectrum offers like a $39 internet. I think I'm only paying $29. And that's all I have is just $29 for internet, and I have power and water, and that's it. A couple years ago, the guy at Comcast, a guy on the phone offered me $17 for 100 megabit internet. Beautiful, beautiful price. And again, that's 4 times the speed that anyone would ever utilize. So look for stuff like that. Don't take no for an answer when they throw curveballs at you. The internet connection that they're giving you is plentiful. It's more than enough, totally fine, powerful connection. And again, in a lot of these cases, that connection could power their whole neighborhood. Wait a minute, Mark, why is my internet always slow? Why do I have glitchy Zoom calls? And why do I have buffering when I'm watching Netflix? I'm paying for all. I called the internet company and they told me to get the turbo package, and I'm paying a ton of money, and I still have a problem. All right, well, that's a second problem let's talk about. All right, so the pricing is awesome. If you can get your price down, that's great. But what about your Wi-Fi reliability issues? So very quick lesson. A modem is the box that connects you to your internet provider. A router governs the traffic inside of your house. That makes sense? Modem connects you to your provider. A router governs the traffic inside your house. I remember when we first got broadband services in people's homes, and I had an aunt and uncle, and they had 2 computers, and they had to get something called a router, right? You didn't need a router if you only had 1 computer, but now all of a sudden, we have several computers, we got tablets, we got TVs, we got phones, we got laptops, right? So a router can theoretically handle up to 256 devices in your house. That's pretty good. So modem connects you to provider. Router governs the traffic in your house. A lot of times your internet provider will offer to rent you a router. I've coined the term fake wireless router to describe these rental routers. They cut your signal by sometimes 90%. They cut your wireless range so you can't use it more than 11 feet away. It's no good farther than that. You're going to have tons of glitchy issues and skipping issues and buffering issues and you name it. So no matter how much you pay for your internet, you're not able to use it right. Remember the Dennis the Menace comics when Dennis would put a kink in the hose and Mr. Wilson's trying to use the hose and nothing's coming out? A fake router, the fake router that your cable company tries to rent to you, is Dennis the Menace. You have plenty of water, but they kink the hose so you can't use it. Does that make sense? So what I do for people when they call me up and say, Mark, I'm paying for all sorts of internet packages and nothing's... I remember this one guy named Jeff, and his router was 25 feet away, no walls or anything in between it. It was right there, I could see it. His home office was over there. His television was over here, 25 feet away, nothing in between. Netflix kept buffering and crashing, couldn't watch it. Okay. I said, yeah, that's the problem. You have a fake rental router. That's your issue. So I keep routers in my car, and I sell them to people all the time, where I say, look, you can go buy your own, whatever, as long as you have a real router. Currently, my personal favorite is TP-Link. I know they're going through some issues right now where people are accusing them of things, but they're nowhere near as bad as Samsung. I'm sticking by them because their products are incredibly reliable and they're incredibly easy to set up, and they beat the pants off of anyone as far as price to performance. But there's plenty of brands out there. Any brand that's not Linksys is reliable in my professional experience. The idea is you buy a router, so you're not having to pay that $5 or $10 or $15 rental fee anymore. And get this, you can use your stuff more than 11 feet away. And it just works, and no more buffering, and no more glitching, and no more nothing. No more problems, it just works, and it's yours forever. I always avoid any kind of cloud-controlled routers, and we'll get into cloud control next. But the idea is just get a simple router. You don't need anything fancy. TP-Link offers a router for 20 bucks that just beats the pants off of these rental routers that you're paying 15 bucks a month for. It's hysterical. You don't need the $250 router that the dude at the big box store is eagerly pushing on you. You just don't need it. Another quick thing, during COVID, a lot of people called me up and said, I was having glitchy internet problems, so my brother-in-law came over and bought a repeater and put it in, and it didn't help. All right, so if you've got Dennis the Menace in your front yard crimping your hose, and your brother-in-law comes over and installs a second faucet or a second hose, doesn't help you, does it? Repeaters are cool, but if you have a fake router, that's your problem. That's your problem. Your hose is kinked at the source, so no matter what you have, that's the problem. That's the root of the problem.
How does it get kinked?
By having a fake rental router.
You know, I mean, they put a wall in between?
No, it's just a poorly made device.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. So if you have this rental router, sure, technically it's a router and it technically works some of the time, but the idea is I'm calling them fake because they're just very poorly designed, and in the vast majority of cases, they are the culprit when I go to someone's house and try to figure out what's going on with their internet.
You fix the problem by putting in one from your car?
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes I'll even, to make a point, like in my own house, sometimes I'll use a 10, 15-year-old router just to prove a point that it's still better than these new rental ones that are coming out. Yeah, these cable companies, and you know, there's one that's shaped like an egg, and they offer all these cloud management services, but they don't actually work a lot of the time. All right, how's that? Good on that one? Next thing is cloud-controlled gizmos, and this is just something I want you all to be aware of. So, you and I grew up in a world where we would purchase a product, and you could safely assume that it was yours, and it belonged to you. And you could do what you want with it, forever and ever. And that's it. It's not the case anymore with a lot of this tech stuff. What if I had to start my car, and every time I started my car, I had to call home to the factory to beg permission to use it? That's what's happening with a lot of this stuff. You guys ever go to your friend's house for a cocktail party, and they have a Sonos speaker? It's a new brand of speaker, and it sounds beautiful, and it's great. But it's controlled by its own factory. Most of the people who buy these things aren't aware of this scandal. And this is just my favorite example, but a lot of products are doing this now, a lot of brands. You turn on that product, and it first has to call home to its factory to beg for permission to continue existing. It's back to forced obsolescence. It's something that people aren't going to notice for a while, until the days in the next couple of years when they're going to start canceling these products or telling these products they aren't allowed to function anymore. Sonos has already done that with their first couple of models, their first one or two models, where if you turn it on, it's not allowed to operate anymore. It's not ownership anymore, is it? You purchase the privilege of being able to use it for as long as we say you can use it. Shame on anyone in any of these organizations who claims to be an environmentalist. That product becomes a doorstop from then on. You are not allowed to use it. It obeys its own factory. All in the name of security. Oh yeah, we don't support it anymore because you might get viruses, so we don't want you using it anymore. And they're getting away with it under cover of complexity because they know you ain't gonna know any better. The other thing is quick sentence on rental software. Microsoft Word, right? In the 90s, we bought it, $100, $150, and it's yours forever.
The CD, you could hold it, it came in a box.
Beautiful, exactly. And I tell people, please keep the CD. You keep the CD, it's yours, it's in your hands, and it's yours. Well, not anymore. So what if you went down to the hardware store and bought a hammer? And instead of paying $10, they say, how about $9 a month? What? That's what's happening in the software industry now. I call it the software rental scandal. Microsoft Office, Adobe Photoshop, you name it. They're going to this model where instead of selling you something once, they're renting it to you. And you get the privilege of being allowed to use it until the day you stop paying them. Huh. No one's saying a word because people don't know any better. People are told that this is the way of the world and there's nothing we can do. Some computer guys just shrug their shoulders and say, well, Mark, that's terrible, but that's the will of Microsoft and there's nothing we can do about it. And other guys love it because that's their gravy train. That's how they make their money. A lot of managed service providers or IT guys who work for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they'll sell their clients down the river and they'll sell them into this rental scheme because then they then get a cut every month from then on. So what do I do specifically in the case of Microsoft Office? There's a couple things we can do. If you are one of the 6 or 7 people on planet Earth who do Wall Street level calculations on Excel, then you can get the Microsoft Office product, but I'll have a battle against their website and get a one-time purchase. If you fight hard enough with their evil website, which is office.com, you can do a one-time purchase where $150 or whatever and it's yours forever. Their website currently says $69.99 buy now. But then in microscopic letters it says per year. That's not buy now, that's rent now. That's not buy now at all. If it's a per year or a per month or whatever, that's not a purchase. Again, morals, logic, ethics, common sense, and the IT industry has none of it. So it's one of the things that I raise awareness for. So in the case of Microsoft Office, yeah, if you're using advanced Wall Street level stuff, sure, you can use Microsoft Office, but don't bother renting it, just do the one-time purchase. Well, wait a minute, Mark. What about the rest of us? Why do you keep saying advanced people can get it? For everyone else, you don't need Microsoft Office anymore. For the past 20 to 22 years, I've been using something else. It's called LibreOffice. And it's made by volunteers who hate Microsoft, so to speak. I've never noticed a difference. Okay, and I do pretty decent small business level calculations with spreadsheets, and I'm an author, so I write books, so I certainly use the word processor.
How do you spell it?
Libre.
The other thing, when they update, they destroy the protocols you knew the last time they were there.
Yeah.
You gotta relearn.
Oh yeah, everything. Oh, the usability, and also the way it's recorded, the way it's saved, the way you send it to someone. They change everything.
So they can have 50,000 options when you only need 15 or something like that.
Exactly. That's the other thing. No one needs any of the complexity, right? I'm a huge fan of LibreOffice. Even if it weren't free, it's simpler, it's minimalist, it's massively safer. Right? Because a lot of these worms and these things that get into people's computers, right? You can send it through a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet. And when Microsoft Office sees it, they go, oh, cool, here, come on in. Have fun with my address book, why don't you? LibreOffice is dramatically, exponentially safer, simpler, more reliable. A lot of people say, well, my nephew came over and put OpenOffice on here. And that's LibreOffice and OpenOffice are cousins. It's the same thing. There's one fatal flaw, though. With LibreOffice, people call me crying, saying that their nephew put LibreOffice, OpenOffice on their computer, and when they save a document, they can't share it with other people. Wait a minute. it's really sad that you have that issue because overall it's a phenomenal product. So what do? I'm one of 6 people on earth who knows how to flip a secret switch inside of LibreOffice to make all the documents compatible. So you can still save a document as an XLS or a PPT or a DocX or whatever it might be, and you can send it to the rest of the world. So that's your only caveat. It's not a big deal. So if you have a nephew who puts LibreOffice or OpenOffice on your computer, just have them flip a switch so that you save your document in a way that's readable by the rest of the world. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm a huge fan. Again, 99% of people, it's all they need, right? People just want to be able to open up a Word document that their HOA sends out every January, right? They're not doing crazy stuff. They shouldn't have to pay $100 a year for something that changes itself all the time, right? People want something simple. And I'm privy to a lot of these minimalist, superior products out there. And in my book, I talk about these products that they're minimalist, they're superior, they're totally free, and they're made by volunteers. The concept is called open source, and I explain the history of that in my book. But the idea is in most cases, they're just better all around. Only since they're made by volunteers, they don't have any way to promote them. So it's up to me and a few other people to promote these things to a public that greatly needs them. All right. Now let's finish up our talk about your HP printer. In the 90s, I had an HP DeskJet, and it was built like a tank. It was phenomenal. It was a color printer, and I printed out my school reports on it, and I printed out pictures, and I even had book reports that had pictures in them. And it lasted a really long time, and I sold it years later, and it's probably still running. I currently, actually, my current home printer is a 1996 HP. Phenomenal. It's an HP LaserJet 1000, I think. So what happened? You know, HP has all these product improvement studies that we talked about earlier, but their products seem to be anti-improving. What's going on? Specifically with inkjet printers, and this goes for most of the industry for consumer inkjet printers, here's what happened. In the old days, my 90s printer that I had when I was little, I had print cartridge, and it came with a print head built in. Just like your pen, the print head is like the tip of your pen. It's the part that touches the paper. Does that make sense? The print heads clog every year or so. Okay, fine. In the 90s, I pull out the print cartridge. It was ink, but it was also the print head. So I put a new cartridge in there, I get fresh ink, and I get a brand new print head. The clog is gone. Huh. These new inkjet printers from every brand, but my favorite culprit is HP, the print head is integrated into the printer, in the center of it, integrated forever into the printer, in a way that you can't replace it.
I bought a used one and it didn't work either.
Yep, and I see them at Goodwill all the time.
And it was HP.
Yeah, they're definitely the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst when it comes to build quality and design and everything. So it's not just their software. But the idea is this. Again, with the old setup, I had a cartridge, I had a print head, I throw it away, I get another one, brand new print head. With these new printers, in the past probably 10, 15 years, print head is integrated into the printer. So when that print head clogs, you're roasted. Put it in the garbage. In some cases, you can give it a clean command and it'll send some ink to clean it, and it kind of works for a little while. But the idea is these products are designed to die. They are designed to stop working. And it makes me cry. So what do? If you still have an inkjet and you want to save money on the ink, and I do the calculations in my book, by the way. It's like, let's say it's $40 for 4 ounces, right? It comes out to be like $42,000 or $82,000 a gallon, and we complain about gas prices. So number one thing is you go on eBay or Amazon, get third-party cartridges, and like I said, it's like $20 for a 12-pack. It saves you massive amounts of money. Leave it to HP to perpetrate a sleeper cell attack, which they did a few years ago and then they did again last year, where if you have a wireless printer, that implies it's connected to the internet, and HP sends it a firmware attack and it attacks the printer, and if the printer smells you're using a third-party cartridge, the printer is told to shut down and attack its owner. These products don't belong to you. The manufacturers believe the products belong to them, and you are just a pair of eyeballs to advertise to. Aside from that, what I recommend is a non-HP laser printer. My favorite is Brother. Brother laser printers last 15 years, no problem. In the past 25 years, I've seen 4 Brother printers die. And I install them all the time, right? So that's an incredible track record. They're just designed to last. Laser printers are designed for offices. And it used to be, hang on, Mark, I thought laser printers are expensive. Not anymore. They're not thousands of dollars. They're a couple bucks more. I mean, sometimes they're the same price as the inkjet printer in a lot of cases. Especially if you don't need color, if you're just doing black and white. You get a black and white laser printer for very affordable. They last 15 years. If you buy the third-party cartridges, it'll be $9 every 3 years. It's incredible. 9, 10, 11 bucks, something like that. Absolutely incredible, reliable. Does that make sense?
One more note on HP, they're also doing a thing a few years back too, where people weren't able to print, and even though the printer had ink, it was fine, it was connected fine. They realized because before printing, the printer was connected to the internet, it was pinging HP's account management servers, and some folks' their credit card on file had the expiration date had come up, even though they didn't owe HP any money or were in some sort of subscription thing.
Whoa.
It still blocked them from printing completely.
That's incredible. That's all the wild world of connected services, folks. Anytime you see any of these commercials about connected services, connect really implies control. That's a beautiful example. I had a guy a couple months ago, and same deal. Actually, my own brother got a printer from someone. It was an HP. He got it from a friend. He said, Mark, what's going on here? And in both cases, the printer said, shame on you. This cartridge is not enrolled in our rental program, so you're not allowed to use it. So pretty similar to the example, to that example here. That's interesting, where HP decided, or through some glitch or whatever, that their system misjudged you just because of your credit card or whatever, wasn't relevant at all, and they control your printer, and they deem you unworthy, and you can't use the ink in your own house, in your own printer.
That you paid for.
That you paid for. I love being in these old buildings and being in New England because I feel like a founding father. I love being able to explain these concepts to people. You're all intelligent, successful people. And I love being able to raise awareness and expose what's happening here.
Is Marc-Anthony your real name?
Sure is.
Because Marc-Anthony had something to do with getting rid of Caesar.
Good point.
And you're going after HP and Microsoft.
Yeah. And it's funny because up until recently, I've just been a guy in a backwater town helping some people in my neighborhood. But people say, aren't you worried about this? And I say, look, I get all my training from pre-existing articles, right? There's something called the Register, which is a British IT newspaper. I mean, this is all out there. And actually, that's a good segue into what we're talking about next. If you go out there, where's my... This is all backed up by articles right here. This one's called, Shh, Your Smart TV is Eavesdropping on You, and it's from PCWorld.com. So the articles are out there. But do you all have time to look at tech articles? So it's my job to bring this stuff to the general public. But yeah, great question. This stuff is out there if you look hard enough. If you had any idea what Samsung was doing to you, well, let's talk about it. Let me give you an idea.
Same with LG.
Yeah, LG just fell off a cliff, just followed them off that cliff recently, where they're doing the same thing. Here's the idea. Back in 2006, I predicted this, that all of our content will be coming from the internet pretty soon, right? And I would have to explain this to people. I would have to explain what YouTube and Netflix were. I mean, it was pretty early on. Back then, around 06, 07, 08, I was actually working on a product that would allow you to watch internet content using a remote, sitting on your couch, without having to use a PC and a keyboard and a mouse and the pop-ups and the malware and all that. It was too early for its time, but the idea was it's a streaming device, right? So later on, we ended up getting streaming devices. We have the Roku and we have the Fire Stick, and they're pretty decent for what they do. They allow you to watch internet content. Okay, great. Then the industry realized something. If these streaming devices stop working after about 3, 4, 5 years, Fire Stick, usually 1 year, Roku's last about 5 years. If they stop working, what happens? Ideally, you put it in the proper recycle, right? And no matter what, folks, even if you are getting rid of something, maybe it's broken, whatever, please do it proper recycling. Talk to your town or talk to your computer guy or whatever and do proper recycling, because this is all hazardous material. This is all toxic stuff. This is all lithium and cobalt and you name it, right? So no matter what, folks, side note, please recycle properly. Or if it still functions, get it to someone who can repurpose it. We'll talk about that in a second. So if you have Roku or a Fire Stick, right, you put it in the recycle bin, and for 30 bucks, you go get another one and you're fine, right? Because they slow down eventually thanks to update attacks. Or you're not allowed to watch a certain channel with it because too bad for you, this Roku's too old or whatever. So you got to go buy another one. And then the industry realized, why don't we integrate these into our televisions? How convenient. And then it's just one remote. How nice. And thus was born the smart TV. So it really infuriates me when people say, well, I was told to get a smart TV so I can watch stuff from the internet. I want to watch Netflix and YouTube, so I was told I have to put my TV in the garbage and get a smart TV. All right, first of all, I'm using 15-year-old televisions, right? You can plug a Roku or a Fire Stick into anything pretty much, so you don't need to get rid of your existing TV. Second of all, here's the scandal with the smart TV. Remember what I said, streaming devices get slow over time, right? And eventually you can't use them for certain networks and whatever. With the small streaming sticks, you get rid of them, spend 30 bucks, get another one. Wait a minute, but if it's a smart TV, put the whole darn thing in the garbage and get another one? You can just imagine the TV executives licking their chops when they came up with this one.